Thank you all for being here this evening for our first session of the Virtual Entrepreneurship Toolkit series. My name is Cameron Law, and I serve as the Executive Director of the Carlson Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And we're really excited to have you here. I'm joined by one of our entrepreneurs in residence, Dr. Brian Gladden. So he'll be leading you through this series here. For those of you that aren't familiar with the Carlson Center, we serve as a regional hub and platform for providing approachable and accessible entrepreneurial education, community, and support to enable startup founders of all backgrounds to discover and launch their businesses. And we're on this mission to make innovation and entrepreneurship pervasive throughout the greater Sacramento region and really working towards realizing this vision of Sacramento being a premier hub of innovation and entrepreneurship. And so how we go about doing that is really working with entrepreneurs along the entrepreneurial journey. We see it certainly as a continuum. So we have programs that we call Discover, Build, and Launch. And so our Toolkit series is part of that build set of programs where we're providing you with founders and entrepreneurs with the tools, mindsets, and frameworks to take your idea, build it into a business model, and ultimately get it to market. And so we're excited to have you here today for our first session. We're going to be tackling customer segments, customer problems, your culture, and your founding team. And we're excited to have a guest speaker. We have Hernani Alves, who's the founder and chief motivational officer for Balanced IQ, and he'll be tackling the culture and leadership component of our section here today, and I'll more formally introduce him later. But before I pass it over to Brian, just a quick housekeeping. We'd love for you to have your video on. We understand if you don't, but we'd really love for you to do that. We'd like to see your faces, and definitely makes for greater engagement. We also will be using the chat feature to bring in questions, as well as sharing ideas. So if you want to get some practice and maybe share the idea that you're working on, as well as your LinkedIn to connect with your fellow entrepreneurs, that's always a great start. So feel free to go ahead and do that. And without further ado, I'll turn it on over to Brian for our session. So thank you all for being here.
Welcome for those who are new, and welcome back for those who have been here before. So we love seeing friendly faces. Hope if it's your first time joining us, you'll get to join us for the rest of the 5-week series. So this is week 1. As Cameron said, today we're really kicking this series off as we do every few months, and starting with the most important things: the customer and their problems, and then you, the founding team, as the entrepreneur, and especially around the culture that you want to create as a leader and entrepreneur. And especially today, we're going to have a guest Hernani talk about leadership and accountability and creating that culture and your passion. Let me get my annotation tool and we will be running. All right. So in red is what we're tackling today. If you wanted to take a look at the next few weeks coming up, you can join us. Hopefully you've already RSVP, but if not, please do. We'll dig a little bit deeper next week into the solution and your UVP and competition, which is alternatives, early adopters, jobs to be done, and risky assumptions, and then into go to market and how to do experimentation to get traction. Then week 4 into revenues and projections, and week 5 wrap it up with a great week always of a panelist of investments, banking, VC, angels, to talk through do's and don'ts of pitching and to figure out how to take this lean canvas and create your pitch deck. So we'll look forward to having you with us. My goals for you this week, tonight, several. One is understanding the environment, especially through COVID. You have an idea, you're an entrepreneur. Let's keep it real, especially in times like this, and how you can go about that. And we're going to look at your mindset and hopefully give you some tools to change that mindset. Many of you, this will be the first time maybe you've heard of or been really immersed in some of these tools and concepts we're going to talk about. We're going to examine your customer and their problems. That's really the core of this, and help you build that business model, which is your business plan, really. And the pitch deck, we're going to use the lean canvas as the foundation to help you build that story and tell your story. And then we're going to talk about the leadership team purpose, and we want you to be able to create that culture you want. And the first hour, I'll do some of the exercises, talking through these concepts. And the last hour will be Hernani really giving us a deeper dive into culture and accountability. So many of you have an idea that you have either started to build on, you want to figure out how to take to market. Maybe you spent years on it already and you're trying to figure out a better way to do this, or maybe it's still just something in your head and you're trying to figure out for the first time, how do I even go about starting a business? Usually you're one of these four areas, right? You have a problem that someone told you about, you saw a problem out somewhere on the market or a need, you experienced something and you said, this isn't the best way to do it, I can figure out a better way to do it, or you just had a dream and you think there's some problem out there that you want to solve. So we're going to talk through this idea about a problem and a solution and how you go about really reducing your risk as an entrepreneur, especially in times like this with COVID and the pandemic. It could be scary and daunting to figure out, gee, do I want to do this now? Is this the best time to do it? Is risk too high? Millions of businesses are failing. Well, let's look at some real data. Yes, there are millions and millions of businesses, small businesses especially, that have failed over the past year due to COVID and through the pandemic. There were 25% fewer small businesses at the end of 2020 than at the beginning of 2020. That's huge, right? But if we think about this from a different lens, yes, some of those were due to just funding and not being able to pay bills, but why? The question usually is, why did that happen? And in most cases during a crisis, it's because something has changed and the way business is done is not meeting the customer's needs. Therefore, the way something is delivered, think about restaurants and food, or as we're Zooming, we're not in person. The customer's need changed, and the way the business delivered their solution was not changed as well to meet the new demand. Therefore, they went out of business. If we look at the positive side, at the end of 2020, in Q3 alone, there were more than 1.5 million new business applications in the US. That's almost double the figure for the same time in 2019, which is pre-pandemic, which is proof that disruption creates opportunity because needs have changed. The way we did things, retail we talked about is the easy thing to think about, and food and how we meet. Solutions had to be created to meet the new demands. So new businesses were created. People like you said, I can fix this problem. I have a solution for this. Other businesses did not pivot. They did not figure out the customer's new need, the new problem, and pivot to that. So crisis creates opportunity for you, the entrepreneur. In the first half of 2020, we saw an increase in e-commerce equivalent to the last 10 years. So we were finding new ways to meet demands as a society, right? Whether that, again, the easy thing is this Zoom, this e-commerce, whether it's Netflix, which did what Disney did, Disney did in a quarter what Netflix did in 10 years. We have all sorts of e-commerce, electronic things that we're doing, just like we are now, that were ways to meet new demands that were not being done previously. So technology definitely is an enabler. It helps you as an entrepreneur. It's not the solution, it's just an enabler. But these are proof points to tell us that yes, we can innovate and create new businesses through pandemics. It's a great time to meet new demands because we all have new problems we're trying to solve. And the thing that we want you to figure out and shift is your mindset. We want you to love the problem, not your solution. As entrepreneurs, we all have this predisposition to think that what we've come up with in our mind is the best thing since sliced bread, and we want to go out and create this thing, this solution, product, service, doesn't matter. We wanted you to change that. We want you to open your mind today and understand how we can love the problem, not this preconceived notion you have of what the solution might need to be. And we're going to talk about tools and how you can do that. So many of you have probably heard about problem, solution, fit. That's usually this first step, and I have some some idea that I think a problem exists, and I just need to validate that. We're going to talk through tools, processes, mindsets on how to get there. But at a high level, we want to talk about why things fail. So many of you, this is the first time you're starting a business. Some of you are like me who have started business before and they did fail. Hopefully that's the best learning experience you'll ever have. It was for me. But the reason that most products fail, the number one reason, is that we build stuff nobody wants. Most entrepreneurs nowadays are something around technology usually. And if you know people who are technologists and engineers, we like to build stuff just because we can. We have the knowledge to do something. So we think, there must be a market for this. That's the wrong mindset to go into. First, we need to figure out what's the problem we're solving. And here you see, 42% of businesses fail because there's no market need for what they created. We're also going to talk about the right team, which is Hernani is going to talk about in more depth later, that leadership, culture, accountability. And then the bottom one, we're going to talk about creating your business model. So 3 of these top 7 reasons businesses fail, we're going to talk about tonight. But that first one is the only thing that matters. If you don't have a problem or a need in the market you're solving, you're probably not going to be successful. Most of you have either experienced pitches, you've done pitches, you created business plans, whether it's a 400-page Word document or a 60-page PowerPoint. But if you think about people you know who are entrepreneurs, or maybe you've done this yourself, the previous way to go about creating a new product or service was to build it first. And you usually had 2 ways people build new things. So here's you, the inventor, the entrepreneur. I have an idea. Let me go out and break the piggy bank, take my savings, go out and build this thing. A lot of money. Maybe I'm hiring someone to write code or a manufacturer to build something for me. I put it all together and I try and find this market. Who has this need, right? Square peg, round hole. Or I just have an idea and I create a storyboard, maybe it's a pitch deck, and I go to investors and say, hey, I have this great idea, give me money so I can go build it. Both of those are backwards. We don't want to waste time and money on building something that nobody wants. We need to validate the problem before we waste our time and money and resources. We call this the innovator's bias or the innovator's gift. So here on the left, this is the old way of thinking. Gee, I'm an inventor, I'm an entrepreneur, this idea is amazing, this is my solution. What problem can I go solve? And that's the innovator's bias, the fact that you think that what you've already built can solve a problem. Versus the innovator's gift, which is the mindset we want you to have, is what problems are worth solving? I think maybe that I have an idea for a solution, but I need to go out and find out, is this problem even worth solving? If myself and my mom and 10 people think this is a great idea, it's probably not a very lucrative market. Is there a big enough market for you to actually make money at this? So creating some solution, building some MVP without even understanding your market and the problem is like starting and building a key without a door, right? You've built this wonderful thing that's supposed to open something, but how are you going to find the door? Well, that's the same thing as building a solution. And you're like, well, where can I go? Which person has this problem? First of all, we need to know our segment, our markets, how many people, who's going to buy it, how much they're going to pay for it, all these things, so that we understand how our solution can be sustainable and, from an investment point of view as well. We look at this also from a kind of an old world, new world. These concepts are new. The old world, and many of you might be like myself, I've written 300-400-page business plans, Word document this thick. And you think that you're going to give it to an investor or a banker or somebody, and they're going to read this, and it takes you probably 6 to 9 months, maybe 12 months to write something like that. No one's going to read it. I'll tell you right now, no one's going to read that. You give it to a banker, they're not going to read it. They're going to turn to the financial projection, the executive summary, and that's it. The new world is, how do you create a business model, a one-page diagram of your idea that you can validate and show proof of a market, of a problem, the size of the market, and then show traction, that there's actually data and people willing to pay for this. Because the speed to market now is so critical. It's really about the speed of learning. That's the new unfair advantage. How can I figure out who my market is quickly without spending a lot of money and a lot of time? Because if you had a business idea at the end of 2019 and you spent an entire year researching it, and then in February you said, oh, I'm going to launch this idea, and COVID hits of last year, you probably had a completely wrong business model. And it was probably so stagnant and with an inability to pivot because the way you have things structured. We need things that are iterative. The markets change quickly, especially now with exponential speed of technology. We need to outlearn our competition. We need to build what customers want, stay relevant, and to be able to grow your business model, we need to be able to pivot when we need to. So our thesis here, and using certain best practices, and we'll get into what Lean Stack is, the people that created Lean Canvas. What separates successful entrepreneurs is your differing mindset, not your skill set. And that way of thinking is really critical, because many people might have the same business schools and you read the same books, but if you go out and start building things that because you have an idea versus getting proof, you're probably going to waste a lot of time and money. So here's an example of a differing mindset or skill set. The old bias we talked about, innovator's bias. So Steve over here is an artist. He just wants to build things first. He's going to take big risk and put his money into it. He loves his solution, so he thinks everybody else should too. And he thinks his solution is the product because he can build it. Versus Larry. Larry's an innovator. He's thinking about the customer first. He's going to remove his biggest risk before he builds anything. He loves the customer's problem, and he knows his business model, how he creates, delivers, and captures value is his true product, not the thing he's built. So that mindset is a completely different way to get to market, which will reduce your risk, speed your time to market, not waste time and resources. So the questions here on validating, this problem is, do I have a problem we're solving? We want to ask ourselves, who are these customers that have this problem? We need to identify why they have this problem. What happened? What changed? Why do they have this problem? Why don't current alternatives suffice? And then how do you validate this? How do we actually get out there and prove this? Because there's probably no market research to show us this. Well, if we take a quote from Bezos, it kind of helps us understand it's all about the customer. And if we keep our competitors focused on us, while we stay focused on the customer, we'll be just fine. And really at the foundation of this is they're all focused about the customer and the customer's needs, not about the other competitors in the market and what they're doing. And it's about these changing needs. If we visualize this in a kind of roadmap on how we're going to try and help you from start to finish, we have to understand the customer's problems over here on the left-hand side before we ever start building some minimum viable product. We need to gather insights and understand their problems and define our solution before we waste time and money building it. And before we even get to problem solution fit, we have the new concept you might not have heard, really customer problem fit. The problem we think exists, does it actually exist to the customers that we know? Is it those segments? And we have to define that first. And then we can figure out, what is the solution to that problem? That's really the second step. So we're going to help walk you through this journey over the next 5 weeks, gaining insights to problems, helping you then build your problem solution, build the offer before you actually ever then build the MVP and not waste time and money. To do that, we really have to get out of the building. The only way to do this, and Steve Blank, famous Stanford professor, author, there's no facts in your building. So get the hell out and go talk to customers. That's what it's all about. Potential customers, prospects, current customers. We need to understand the people in your market, who you're targeting, what are their needs. And it's not about asking them, what do you need? It's about observation. It's about interviews, other things you can get from surveys and all these different types of feedback mechanisms to understand what's out there now, why doesn't it work, and how can I solve that problem. So if you're in this space where you're just starting out with an idea or maybe reiterating an idea, the first step and homework for you would be to go out and talk to people that you think are potential customers. They don't have to be customers now, and just talk about problems that they are having, that they are either known problems, maybe it's just a description of how they go about using something, and observing how somebody uses some product or service that you're trying to create a solution for. That journey will help you understand the customer and where their problems might be. Once we have a little bit of more insights to these problems, we need to then document it. And here's where we kind of get into the lean canvas that many of you have heard of, probably why one of the reasons you're here now is to understand this lean canvas, which is a best practice tool created by Ash Moria at LeanStack. And it really is your business model. We think about this when we teach it, think about it as this entrepreneurial method. We want to keep it simple. First, we want to model this idea that we think that we can capture money from. We want to then prioritize what are our riskiest assumptions, because everything you put on this piece of paper, this business model, is your hypothesis. I think this is my customer segment. I think this is my channel to market. I think these are the problems. I think this is what somebody will pay for it. You might have some data, some research, some validation for some of those, which is great. And we need to understand what are our riskiest assumptions in this model, and then test those assumptions, reiterate, refine our model before we actually start building something. So what is this lean canvas? Well, it is a one-page business plan that tells your story. It is your business model, which is how you create, deliver, and capture value from whatever it is that you're going to bring to market. It also is what we use to help you populate your investor pitch deck. It's concise and it's powerful, and we'll get into that over the next several weeks. So any pitch deck that's a leading pitch deck out there, there's many, Guy Kawasaki, many other ones, they all have the same elements in the business plan. And what you'll see in a minute is those are the same elements in the lean canvas. So it creates a shared language that you, the investor, your stakeholders, everybody understands. It's also a very agile, iterative, and visual. So this is really what it looks like. If you've ever heard of the business model canvas, I know some of you have, that was the original one-page business model canvas. And it was created by a strategizer and the founder of that called, his name was Alex Osterwalder. This one is a little bit different. So it has 4 components that are different, that are focused more for the entrepreneur. And Ash Moria, who created a company called LeanStack, created this, and it's called the Lean Canvas. And it is really focused on the problem. So instead of partners, you see here it has a problem. Instead of activities, we have the solution. Instead of resources, we have metrics. And instead of relationships, we have unfair advantage. The rest are all the same. And we're going to dig into this a little bit deeper, talk about how to use it over the next 5 weeks. We'll go through each one of these elements. But the most important thing is the 2 outsides, the problem and the customer. And the only thing that we really want to focus on is the weakest link. That's the only thing that matters when we first start this business. Optimizing your channel and your partners and some manufacturing process, it doesn't matter unless we first look at the problem and the customer. Because if there's no need that you're solving, it doesn't matter if you actually know how to build it, because no one's going to buy it. So we focus on the 2 pillars on the left and the right, the problem and the customer. And within the customer segment, you see here early adopters, which are just early customers, and then existing alternatives, which are competition, but what exists already as a solution to solve that problem. And those are the riskiest assumptions initially that we want to validate. We want to focus on those before we start testing the other areas. We still want to document everything, but we want to validate these areas first. When we look at this lean canvas, I've kind of color coded it here. to help you understand it a little bit better. On the right-hand side, in the blue, think about it as the customer and the customer profile. So it's all about the customer over here. Who the segments are, who the early adopters are, how do we actually get this product or service to the customer, what is the revenue stream, how much will a customer pay for this thing, and then here in the middle is that product or service, right? What is that thing the customer is buying? And on the back end, think about this as the product or you, the company, the operational side. The problems you're solving with the solution, what are those features of this thing you've made, metrics that you're looking at internally, competition, and your costs. So we can look at it as internal and external to the customer when we look at the two halves of the lean canvas. But to help us start, we really want to look at the two pillars. And when we bring them together, we can just consider this the leaner canvas. Kind of get rid of all the other stuff out of the way first and just say, okay, left and the right, push them together. Who's my customer? How do I identify these potential early adopters? What are the problems I think they have? And how do they solve that problem today? Keep it very simple. So let's look at an example of this. And then in a few minutes, we're actually going to do an exercise. So let's look at Google. This was an adaptation of what Google's lean canvas would have looked like back in 1998. And it's very simple. The first time you do one of these lean canvases, it's going to be very, very messy. You're going to have a lot of words all over the place, which is okay. And then the more you simplify it and really keep it dumbed down to a high level, that's the goal. So what are the customers that they were targeting? Well, web users. Back in 1998, there wasn't that many of us. What was the problem they were trying to solve? Well, two of them. One, that there are irrelevant search results for existing search engines, and it was hard to find what you're searching for. So we have come so far. Some of us remember when Google first started and we first started using search engines, and you think, oh man, that's such a basic thing. But back then, this was a big problem. The alternatives, the competition back then were AltaVista, Yahoo, and Excite. These were the three search engines that were on the market that Google was competing with. They targeted the early adopters, which were Stanford students. So Google started in Stanford. They said, great, let's target our local environment. Let's target Stanford students. Many of them are using the web. They're using these other search engines. They think that these are the problems they're having. So they had to go out and validate those were the problems that they were trying to overcome. So this is how we kind of fill out a lean canvas from really problem, customer, and then fill in everything else. Your UVP, which is your unique value proposition, that thing you're creating. The solution, think about it as your main three features of that product or service you're creating. And it should actually map to the problem. What are those features of your solution that are helping the user overcome these problems? The channel, how are we getting it to somebody? Brick and mortar store? Is it a distributor? Is it a SaaS product you're downloading from the web, right? And then costs and revenue streams, pretty self-explanatory. The other couple here that might be unique to you, so unfair advantage. When we think about unfair advantage, think about that as something that is really unique to you, that is hard for someone else to copy. So if you have been in an industry for 30 years and you have lots of relationships, that's not something someone else can easily copy tomorrow, those relationships. SEO ranking, right? That's organic. You can't just wake up tomorrow and have first page SEO ranking for Google. You can have an ad, but you won't have organic first page. IP, patents, right? Those are things that are not easy for someone to copy. So what is it that you have, possess, or know that is easy or not easy for someone to copy? That would be an unfair advantage. And then we look at metrics, and we'll get more into this over the next few weeks, but it's not so much your internal metrics about my throughputs and my efficiency and things like that we always think about in terms of manufacturing or cost. This is more about throughput of the customer in that whole sales business development funnel. Downloading an app would be an example. How many people downloaded the app? Well, how many people actually created a profile? How many people actually called Uber? How many actually used Uber? How many rides did they go on? What was the average cost of those rides? And so now we kind of have an idea of, from high level acquiring someone to actually then them using the product. How are we getting them through the funnel? So over the next 5 weeks, we're going to dig into each one of these elements of the lean canvas so you can understand them and be able to use those within our pitch deck, as you can see here: channels, go to market, the solution, customer segments, your early adopters, all these things, and revenues and costs. What we're going to do now is we're actually going to do some hands-on exercise. We're going to look at YouTube and figure out what was their customers, early adopters, alternatives, and problems that we think they might have been looking at when they first started in YouTube. And to do that, we're going to break into some breakout rooms, and Cameron and I will lead you and use a mural board. And we're going to kind of be your scribes, and you're going to just tell us and blurt out what you think the customer segments were and problems and so on, just so you get some hands-on experience building out a lean canvas. And we'll come back together at the end and we'll talk about some of the answers. But this hopefully will kind of get that defense, loosen some of your defenses about using the tool, to get to see how it works and then hear from some of your colleagues as well. So I'm going to turn it to Cameron. Before we do that, maybe we can answer any questions that some of you might have on just some of the things we've covered up to now.
Yep, good transition. So yeah, if there are any questions, feel free to use the raise hand feature, or you can throw in the chat that you have a question, or if you would like to just unmute yourself at this moment, feel free to go and do so. So I'll keep an eye out.
Hey, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Hey, Cameron, nice to see you again.
Likewise.
Yeah, so I was wondering how this would work for innovation. Could we still use this, or is there a completely different canvas for this?
Yeah, great question. So absolutely, you can use the lean canvas or the business model canvas for innovation, depending on where you are. So if you already have launched a business, it's ongoing, you're doing well, and you're just trying to innovate, sometimes I'll work with clients and use the business model canvas for that, because it has a few elements that might be more appropriate for an ongoing business. It just depends where you are in your life cycle. If you just started and you're still trying to reiterate and innovate through things like the pandemic, absolutely, we want to understand the problem in the customer segment first. And what's interesting, I'll back up one slide. Oops, wrong way. Each of these elements, whether it's the lean canvas or the business model canvas, this is your business model. And there are 9 elements here which give you 9 ways to innovate. So if you have a current business, and I know we're getting a little off topic, but one of the things to look at is, okay, I'm currently doing business. How do I do business to a different customer segment? Do they have a similar problem? Am I able to get my product or service to market through a different channel? Maybe I'm currently now direct. Can I go OEM? Can I go distribution? So every one of these elements can be looked at as an innovation element all to their own, to help you change the product, get to new markets, create new market space. And it's just that whole mindset of looking at each of these on how you create, deliver, and capture value.
Great, thank you. Yeah, my biggest thing, sorry for the noise. My biggest thing is that I'm basically I'm an innovation consultant right now, and I'm working with a space travel company, and they're creating a completely new like rocket technology, right? So it's still like it's really pre any of this, and so I'm just wondering if you have any tips as to what I can focus on with this canvas, because it's a little bit overwhelming with the size of this project, and they're trying to make it a ubiquitous national technology, so it just feels like so big on the grand scale. I was wondering if you have any advice for that.
And I don't see who's speaking. I don't see a face. Who is speaking?
Natalie.
Yeah, Natalie, sorry. I'm not
Yeah,
sure.
Natalie, get with me offline because that's what I do as well. Innovation consulting. Maybe we can collaborate on this and I can help you because
Oh, great.
these are the tools to start with. It doesn't matter what industry or where they're at. To innovate, even to find new market space, we have to figure out what's the customer, what problem are we solving, and that there's some other tools we can use as well. But this is a great foundation.
Great, thank you.
All right, great questions. Anyone else out there?
Any additional questions? So I'll answer one question if there is people thinking. Thor asked what we'll be doing in the breakout room. So we will be using YouTube as an example to get some practice with the leaner canvas, which is basically the far edges of the lean canvas. So the problem, existing alternatives, customer segments, and early adopters. And then I do want to put out there that we will be sharing all these resources in PDF format that are editable, not like where you're going to eat them because I pronounced it that way. But you can send that to Brian or myself, and we'd be happy to give you feedback and help you go through that process. So don't hesitate to reach out to us. And as you kind of do the quote unquote homework, you can certainly get our support as you move forward. So maybe I've bought some time for one more question. If not, I will open up those breakout rooms and we'll have probably 10 minutes or so. Perfect. All right, going once, going twice on the questions. All right, we're sold to breakout room. So we'll be back here in 10 minutes. If you're not getting anything on your screen, you're going to be in this room with me.
Thank you. We'll see you guys in a second.
Well, awesome. So we are going to tackle the leaner canvas for YouTube. So I believe you can see my screen, correct? It's the Mira board.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we're going to start with this customer segment. So putting ourselves, I know YouTube's certainly grown over the number of years since it was founded, but we're putting ourselves in the founding shoes of that YouTube team. Who is their initial customer when you're thinking of YouTube? Who do we think they were targeting?
Let's say teenagers.
Teenagers? Okay.
Yeah, I guess.
I would say really sophisticated techie people.
Okay.
I thought they were kind of trying to target everybody.
I thought they were targeting cable companies because it was a free service. So cable.
So existing people that used cable companies, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because it was always a free, service. So yeah, I think they were targeting cable companies.
Okay. Okay. Cable companies. All right. So I guess one thing that I'll share, and we'll teach this a little bit later on in our series, is one of the unique things about YouTube. It's a platform, right? So they have two actual users and customers. One is someone that's viewing the video, and then someone that's creating it. So when we think of that customer base, there's kind of those two particular lenses that we want to look at this. So I don't know if that spurs any new ideas of potential customers or users of YouTube.
I didn't think about the viewers. I'm sorry, the people that are doing the videos and viewing the videos are both customers. I didn't think about it that way.
Right. So one of the things we'll share is on a platform business, you have your users that create what's called a derivative asset, right? So they get a free service, but they're creating data that's ultimately sold to someone, right? So they have advertisements or other things, which is part of their customer base. So when we think of how that business model works, there's people that are using something, but they're creating something of value for someone else. So. But yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Would it be correct to say the influencers? I mean, the category that we actually now identify, I don't know how they were identifying back then.
Gotcha. So I'm going to say video or content creators. How about that?
Content creators, right.
But Cameron, how do you deal with if your target audience is not created yet or labeled yet? Like influencers weren't really known back then.
Right. No, that's a great question. So they probably, partly it's been put on we've found language for that particular type of person, right? We've put it now as an influencer. Part of when we look at that customer segment of an influencer, right, was partly YouTube needs content in order to be valuable, right? And so how they ultimately monetize that is to have an influencer drive particular advertisements or companies. So I think one of the things as I look at this customer segment that we're looking through, I don't see any that are really generating money towards YouTube, right? A lot of these are the user side of things, right? The teenagers might be the ones viewing the content, same with techie style people and the cable companies, people that used cable, but we don't have who's actually paying YouTube for a service.
Okay, like a self-help for us by us method.
So I think that's kind of in the, I'll go with the self-help viewers. So I think there's one more.
I think it's the advertisers. I mean,
Exactly. There you go.
Yeah.
Advertising companies, right? That's how they make their money is we're viewing and they sell that data to say, Cameron likes reading lean stack books and we'll, make sure that that's his, advertisement that he receives, or he's looking at, self-help videos, we can send him advertisements related to that. So of these customer segments that we've started to identify, who do we think would be the early adopters? So those people that they would start with and attracting. And so maybe we'll do one sticky note per user and customer. So who do we think of the advertising companies, who would be their initial target, like that early adopter?
Maybe retail companies.
Retail? How do we feel about that as a group? Do you think that's good? I think.
What about technology companies?
Yep. I think those two are great. Retail companies and tech companies.
Or like video games or gaming.
And I'll do a video. I like it. And then what about the user side? Who are the first people to, create content or view content?
Geeky people.
Sorry, say that again.
Geeky people.
Geeky
Techie-
people. So what were
techie
what
nerds.
were they like? Were they making videos of? I remember like the first time I heard of YouTube, it was like seeing cute dogs or funny things like that. What were some of the initial who were the first people to want to view YouTube? Were they people that wanted to watch people playing video games so they could learn how to play better?
I think they're how-to videos. I don't know about the techie thing, but I always Google how to do something and it comes up on YouTube. So a lot of home repair or just how to do something, and it pops up on YouTube without even going to there first.
Yep. DIY. Yep, I like it. How do we feel about our early adopters? Feel good?
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Bria.
Oh, would you say like a specific generation would be part of early adopters, or would that be part of the customer segment section?
Yeah, it's a good question. So it could be part of the customer segment or the early adopter, and I'll clarify my answer is they might be a starting point, but an early adopter is kind of the first person to really move in that space, right? So thinking of a startup, you have limited budget, time, and resources to be able to attract people to your potential product or service, right? So instead of throwing it out to the ether, it was like, hey, we're going to target this particular demographic and type of person. It could be a generation. It could be, we're going to target this generation that does do-it-yourself videos, or it could be this generation that wants to watch esports games or whatever it might be, or someone that wants to look up how to sew their own types of jeans or something of that sort, right? So that would be how I would look at it from a generational lens.
Got it. Thank you.
Yep. All righty, we'll move on. So I think we feel good about our customer segments and our early adopters. So now moving over to our problem side. So when we look at these customer segments and early adopters, what problems were they having as they were kind of, as we look at this particular context? So when we think of content creators, what were their problems? Why would they use YouTube?
Maybe to reach a wider audience.
I was going to say cost, because if you having the internet, you can just, like she said, reach a wide audience. Otherwise, you'd have to pay out a lot of costs to promote your services.
Yep. So I put reaching a broader audience and then cost to develop and host video content, right? If you had to do that all yourself, it would be expensive. What about self-help viewers or some of these other content users?
Cost of production, for example, you can use your cell phone instead of having a whole cast to help you.
Okay, we'll add that right there, cost of production. And then what about the problems with the advertisers? Is that similar to reaching a broader audience, or how do we feel?
What do you mean problem with the advertisers? Do you mean the cost of having to afford advertising versus what do you mean?
Yeah, so the language we like to use, right? So at the end of the day, we buy a solution because we have some sort of problem. Maybe in the advertiser's case, it's too expensive and you're not getting enough conversions with magazine advertising, or maybe magazine advertising doesn't actually align with your brand, or whatever that might be, right? So those are the problems that particular business had. Did that clarify it, Angelia?
Yeah, I guess what you're saying, like, for instance, I know for me, I'm constantly doing a lot of stuff for my own house, but when I pop up a YouTube video for like electrical outlets, then all of a sudden Home Depot pops up, or Lowe's. So I think that I would guess that they're doing it because they can reach more people and they're not necessarily having to even define their demographics. They just, because I'm looking for electrical, it pops up where I can buy electrical supplies. Home Depot or Lowe's ad will pop up. And then sometimes you click on it, but even if you don't click on it, it's already put in your head that I can go to Home Depot and get all the supplies to do what this person's showing me to do.
I love it. So I put better targeted, maybe that's not maybe the best grammar, but targeted outreach and a greater reach for those.
But one part we're missing here too, Cameron, is the problem is making money. This provided a channel that they can actually make money off their content.
I like that. So they could make money on. All right. Cool. So our last little part of the leaner canvas is the existing alternatives. So what was when YouTube was coming to existence, what were some of the current web host or video hosting solutions? Were there any on the market? What was out there?
Netflix.
So was Netflix? I'm not sure. I think it might have been. I'll put it on there.
Yahoo.
So Yahoo, did they had like a video streaming capability, or were they the search engine?
A search engine. I don't think they were streaming.
Okay. Any others? I think I only know of one, but starts with a V. I think they still host videos today.
Was it Blockbuster?
Oh, the VMO?
Yep, you got it. There it is. Vimeo. Awesome.
Oh, I said that wrong.
I could have said it wrong as well, so no worries for you. So awesome. So this is a little taste of how you could use the leaner canvas. One of the things we shared that these are as you're starting your business, these are all assumptions that you have, right? So when you're building this with your business in mind, you're thinking, okay, this is my customer segment. This is who I think has this particular problem. But we have to go out to the market, right? And that's that Steve Blank quote. We need to get out of the building and go talk to our customers and validate those assumptions are true. And so we'll give you the frameworks to go about doing that. So I will call them on back, and during that time, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. So could be just about the course or the exercise or anything that we've shared thus far.
But one question I have is, when YouTube was starting out, they really didn't have, what if you're creating something that's a new platform altogether? So you don't have competitors yet to the market.
So a good question. So one of the things that we always look at is there's some sort of substitute out in the market. So they're part of you creating the solution is because the existing alternatives have problems with them, right? So maybe it's not as affordable, or it's less accessible, or you can't actually create your own thing, but there's some sort of solution out there, whether that was, you creating your own video and putting it into VHS, that was still some sort of existing alternative in the marketplace. Where you could, so that's kind of how we look at it is innovation comes within those core components. So awesome. Thanks for the question, Mark.
Yeah.
So,
Well, so let's look at what supposedly was YouTube's Lean Canvas. Again, an adaptation. This didn't exist, Lean Canvas, back then. But from all of the pitch decks and the business plans, this was basically what came out of it. So when we think about customers, who were they? They were mass market users, amateur video bloggers, and advertisers. The problem, and they kept it very simple, there was no hosting video as a service. So we talked, probably got very granular in some of our problems, which is fine, but at a high level, the main simple problem, there was no such thing as hosting video as a service. Who are some of the early existing alternatives? Vimeo, Share Your World, and Google Video. And who are some of the early adopters they targeted, within these segments? Teenagers that were online, college students, video hobbyists, and filmmakers. They were obviously trying to create film and content because there wasn't a lot of content back then. So it's hard to kind of go back and think about some of these things because it's evolved so quickly. But the goal here was to help you understand who my segments are, what exists now, and the problems, and to keep that at a high level so we can go out and then quickly validate, is my hypothesis right? Does this segment actually have this problem? And if so, how big is that market? And then we can build our business model from that, knowing that there is something to solve. So I'll stop here for some questions. Did you guys find that helpful for those of you who have done it for the first time? Did it make doing the Lean Canvas a little more real and not so daunting?
we do have a question, it looks like, from Jeff, and if I mispronounce it, please let me know. Go ahead, Jeff. Feel free to unmute yourself.
Just looking at the problem statement there, it occurs to me that that sounds a lot like there's no solution out there. Like the solution would be hosting video as a service. And
yeah, good way to look at it. And so if we look at these alternatives, it sounded like there were solutions to see videos online, but there was nowhere that was hosting videos as a service, right? And so really understanding what's there, because for every solution or product in the world, there is an alternative, right? How is something being overcome right now? Maybe not a very good solution, but there wasn't as a service back then. It was just maybe, Vimeo, I think they're still around, but they didn't host as a service like YouTube wanted to do.
I see. Okay. Thanks for the explanation.
Great questions. All right. So let's move on. my main insight and takeaway for you for this entire section about using the lean canvas and your business model is this mindset shift. Your business model, not your solution, is your true product. And for those of you who want to define what a business model is, your business model is how you create, deliver, and capture value from whatever it is you're selling. The solution is just that thing, right? My hydro flask, whatever that thing is you've made. But how you're monetizing that and capturing value, that is your business model. And your business model is what we have shown on one piece of paper here. Your lean canvas is your entire business model, those 9 elements. And so that's really the starting point, trying to help you shift the mindset to not the thing, but how is it that I'm actually creating, delivering, and capturing value and understanding my entire picture in one piece of paper. Obviously, a lot more to go through over the next 4 weeks if you hopefully will join us and go through the rest of the elements of the lean canvas. Today was really that high level mindset, the customer, the problem, and now the team, right? The founding team, you, the entrepreneur. And as we move into the presentation with Hernani, just a couple of high level thoughts to get us going. This idea of the founding team, you might be a sole proprietor. You might be, have 2 or 3 others with you, which is very normal. And you are setting the tone, right? You're creating the culture. It always starts with the leader at the top. You're providing leadership and accountability, right? What you do matters and why you do it. And when we think about culture and leadership, I love this quote here from Peter Drucker: culture eats strategy for breakfast. So why does culture matter? Well, without ensuring you have a strong culture, you will not be able to effectively execute your strategy in a sustainable way. It might be okay for a little bit, but it's not going to be sustaining. And culture is the main source of resistance to change. So you as that leader, you need people with you that want to follow you, that have the same passion that you have. And that really comes down to why. Why does your business exist? Why do you do what you do, right? If you know Simon Sinek, the golden circle, start with why. And it's all about understanding what's the shared purpose that you and the other people in your business have come together to build that culture. And what do you stand for? People want to know what you stand for. And that's what Hernani is going to talk a lot about: passion, accountability, why you do what you do. And that is you as a leader and a founding team. And that really, you need to think about it now, not just about how do I build this widget that I want to get to market. So I'm going to turn it over to Cameron to introduce Hernani and look forward to talking more at the end. We'll have more time for Q&A for everything we've covered tonight.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Brian, for the first part of our session here today. And it is my pleasure to introduce our guest speakers. So we have Hernani Alves joining us. He is an Amazon best-selling author with over 20 years experience as a sales executive for a $3+ billion company. He has motivated executives, sales professionals, and teams throughout the United States. And some notable clients are Starbucks, Remax Gold, Stanford University, Burford Brothers Wealth, and City of Palo Alto. And Hernani is the founder and chief motivational officer of his company, Balanced IQ. And he knows how to truly build world-class teams and institute sustainable change in a varying economic climates. And so we're really excited to have him here. And he's certainly someone in our local ecosystem that's passionate about supporting entrepreneurs and building company cultures. So without further ado, I'll hand it on over to Hernani, who will lead us through the end of the session here today. So thanks for being here.
How many of you would love to learn one new skill that'll help you achieve nearly 100% of your results? Who's in? I can see your hands here. All right, good. What if I told you this new skill, if you actually, once you master it, it's going to save you time on your schedule? Now who's in, right? Absolutely. And I have seen entrepreneurs go at this and go crazy, and they're so passionate for their idea, which is great, but they don't win hearts along the way. And all of a sudden their business doesn't make it. I have seen locations on Broadway on Main Street, the best locations in town. And the people that go in there all of a sudden kill the business. And then you change the people, it's in the same location, same advertising, same everything, except now of a sudden they are doing much better. And what does it come down to? Winning hearts. The people of the organization is what makes it work. So I'd like to do a quick little poll here for all you experts. I would like to know, how important do you feel accountability is? So I'm going to launch it here. It's going to come up. It's a real easy. You just press the number you think. How important? 1, not needed. 2, below average. 3, average. 4, above average. 5, very important. So looks like it's going pretty quick. We've already got a lot of people. Well, they're done. Wow, that was quick. So a lot of you have put in already, and we have 3 as only 5%. That's it. And then we have above average 5, and then very important 90. That is crazy. So I actually I think we're done. I think we can just go to dinner. This group already knows how important accountability is. So I think we are done. This is a great time to spend time with you. You guys are already advanced. You've got it. So yes, but here's the deal. We're not done yet, right? You're waiting for something here. There's got to be a catch. What's going on? Well, here's the challenge. With a recent study conducted by the American Management Institute, they asked over 5,000 business executives, leaders, and entrepreneurs. And they go, how many of you feel you have a good accountability program within your organization? There's the answer. Only 3% saw it. 3%. 97% of them said, I don't think it's really good. I think it only happens when HR gets involved, or somebody gets fired, or somebody gets busted. We're not very good at it. These are high-performing people. These are graduates from Harvard. These are people that have grown up in the Fortune 500 companies. And you're not going to believe this, but they asked the follow-up question. So tell me more. How come it's only 3% of you have this? The common answer was, I've never been trained. That's what they said. I've never been trained. I've never been trained on accountability, because the way I learned about accountability is I saw someone else do it, or they held me accountable. They did that. And so many organizations are still doing the carrot and the stick. And the carrot and the stick does not work. It's like a BlackBerry. It doesn't really exist anymore because they were so passionate. Let me tell you how crazy this is, the carrot and the stick. So way before our time, the farmer would wake up in the morning. He would go and rip out a carrot out of his garden. He would head over, hook it up, grab a mule, take it out, hook it up to a plow, tie the actual carrot to a stick, and motivate the mule to plow the field. Did it work? Yes, it worked. I mean, the mule's hungry, wants to eat, so it starts plowing the field. But the mule starts realizing that the harder it works, it's not getting any closer to that carrot. So what does the farmer do? He starts to bring the carrot back to the mule. And then eventually, the mule's pretty smart, figures it out that, hey, the more I slack off, the faster I get my carrot. And that's what the mule starts doing. Well, the farmer's only got X amount of carrots. He can't just keep feeding the mule. So then, guess what? Yeah, the slap, the stick comes out, starts beating the mule. And does that work? Absolutely. The mule, I mean, any one of you start getting beat, you're going to start plowing a field too pretty quick, or you're just going to shut down. And that's what happens. Even after a while, the mule is not going to deal with the stick anymore. It's going to shut down. And guess what? They're going to have to replace it. That's where that turnover kicks in. And that's not working, but they keep doing it. And then they'll rotate it. And the farmer is going to raise more crop. And he's going to raise more carrots. He's just going to go through more mules. And he's not going to have that commitment. Here's some organizations that have failed. Boeing, you've heard of that one. Lack of accountability. Very big company. 737 MAX. I mean, they lost nearly 400 people because of an error that could have been prevented. It could have been air-proofed, but they cut corners. They went to market and they said, we will train the pilots. Well, guess what? A few pilots didn't get trained on that, and that could have been all prevented. It could have been air-proofed. And here's a big one. Lehman Brothers. Some of you may have forgotten who they are. 2008 collapse that happened. They were the main one, the main bank that went under. They were in business for 150 years. What happened? Lack of accountability. they started doing these ninja loans. Ninja, it's an acronym. It stands for no income, no job applications. Great. I mean, that's a no-brainer. If you don't have a job and no income, but let's get you a house, it's not going to work. So of course that caught up to them, and we all of us went through that in 2008. And then the Houston Astros, you probably remember during the World Series, they had a camera in the outfield looking at the catcher, catching what the codes were. From there, somebody would send in what the code was to the batting coach. The batting coach would let the batter know what pitch he's going to get. You know, in baseball, you can steal second base, but you can't have a camera and steal signs. It's got to be something that's allowed for both teams. Lack of accountability. We can keep going on and on. Wells Fargo recently coming up with fake applications. That happens in business. But what happens is, especially in this new era, is some organizations are like, my people are good. We don't need accountability. I don't want to lose anybody. Who wouldn't want to work for a place with no accountability? And I've asked this multiple times. Sometimes people are like, I think I do. You're not going to. A lack of accountability means people are missing deadlines. They're not reading your email. They're not following up. You can't count on them. You're not getting paid on time because they're not writing their checks, right? Who wants to work for a company with no accountability? And then you got to swing the pendulum over the other side. It's extreme, where you can't do anything. You can't even think. You got to get permission for every little thing. It's very difficult. You've got all these passwords and all this stuff, too much accountability. Well, most people would rather be on the extreme side because they know what to expect. However, what you're looking for is something a little bit more balanced, because you really don't want to have to shadow and micromanage your entire team. You want them to be flexible, to be doing things above and beyond. And that's where balanced accountability comes into play. My name's Hernani Alves. As you heard from Cameron, I started right here in Sacramento with an amazing company called Sleep Train. The Carlson Center is named after the founder of Sleep Train, Dale Carlson. And I started off part-time. It wasn't going to be something I was going to do long-term. I mean, who wants to sell mattresses? I mean, come on. I went to school for something more than that. But guess what? I fell in love with the people. I fell in love with Dale's dream, and I stayed there. And I eventually ended up becoming president of the company. We were doing north of $3 billion. We had 15,000 employees. The kicker here is we won multiple times the Best Workplace Award. How did we do that? And when I left the organization, because we sold the mattress firm, it was time for me to move on. I had multiple people reach out like, we want to have that accountability that we have at Sleep Train. We want you to bring that in with our organization. And so I started working with them on it. And it was just going to be part-time because I had traveled over 147 nights my last year on the road. So you can see I wanted to spend some family time. So I wasn't going to get too involved, but it just kind of started taking off, ended up becoming a bestseller on Amazon. So it's been an awesome ride, still continues. I'm going to share with you an actual testimonial I just received from a helicopter company. I've had a chance to work with a lot of cool companies, but I wanted to share this with you really quick. Hopefully you can hear it.
Some of the problems that Balanced Accountability has addressed have been breaking down barriers between departments, improving on the communication, and also helping to hold the managers accountable for their own actions.
I'd have to say that Balanced Accountability has definitely opened up a lot of opportunities for other people's ideas to be heard company-wide.
I think before there was a lot of people that just came to work and went home, and I think now they're a lot more vested in the ideas and the culture of the company.
And across the board, the whole company is on board and going the same direction. Our energy is spent in the same direction.
Where it seemed so divided before. Just between departments, especially like communication and having a common goal. Like if we fail together. And if we win together.
Our mission was to provide exceptional service that the industry is kind of lacking. Didn't really until recently, the help of some tools and ideas with Hernani, actually define it. We'd had a tremendous amount of growth, a tremendous amount of talent on the team, and then being able to try to bring that together into a group with a solid foundation so that you can kind of take your business to the next level.
And now that we've drawn it all together, it's definitely united and bonded us stronger. That's very, very rewarding.
Almost a smile coming with your service at this point, and just coworker to coworker even. It's really made a huge difference here. We're getting things done a lot more efficient.
And I think bringing balanced accountability took us to the next level. I've loved working with Hernani. I'm so grateful. It's changed me forever, professionally, personally, and I think it's left a big imprint on our company.
Working with Hernani has been a lot of fun. He's very energetic. He is very passionate about what he does and about helping people and helping companies and businesses grow, and just really encouraging people and the businesses to become the best that they can.
You know, like anybody that you're bringing in, initially maybe a little skeptical, but he's surpassed my expectations as far as the knowledge, the tools, and the relationship that we've developed with him. The biggest thing that I've witnessed is kind of a change in culture. I think has brought our team together. I mean, at the end of the day, to build the business and to give it some real foundation.
That's awesome. It was such a fun time to work with them. And I don't know anything about helicopters. I've actually never flown in a helicopter. They're supposed to give me a ride, but I haven't even done that. So I don't know anything about it, but I know people, and that's what they had been expanding. Their entrepreneur is Sparrow. Now, he started many years ago because he wanted to create a better way to service these helicopters. So he had this pickup truck with all the tools, and he would drive around the country and fix helicopters at different locations. And so now they've grown it. They're in multiple countries. It's an international company, and he continues to grow. And he was at this point where he wanted to scale the business, but the departments were like against each other. They were kind of working in their own silos. They wouldn't communicate and work together. And so the process, I normally take them through a 2-day workshop. We really get into the weeds about what are some challenges and different things. And then we kind of come together united. The company finds its purpose. The purpose is, why does your company exist? Why is it even on the planet? So what's the purpose? And it's something that's greater than money. What are you truly doing? And then the values are, how are we going to actually act? And that's going to be 3 to 5 values. And there are going to be things in there that really mean a lot to the company. And then it's going to get into the vision. All right. So this is why we exist, our purpose, our values. This is how we're going to act. Now the vision is the next 3 to 5 years. What does it look like? Where are we going? And these are all one sentence things. And guess who comes up with it? Not the owner, not the CEO, not the entrepreneur. It's the team that comes up with it. And then, of course, the owner and CEO validates it. He will add his secret sauce, but a group of people that work in an organization will come up with about 80% of it. And that's where it starts. So I'm going to give you some very high level. You can get more information out of the book. I'm always here for you. I'm a big fan of the Carlson Center and everything it does and how it helps so many lives. So I'm always available for you. You just got to do is reach out. And I think Cameron and Brian know that. So I do that. I love serving and helping other people and going through it. So I'm going to give you the balanced accountability, not the carrot and the stick. So balanced accountability, what that is, it starts with 3 P's. So the first P, personal accountability. Guess who it starts with? You. And here's where most entrepreneurs forget is they are working so hard and they're doing so much to come up with the solution that they don't take care of themselves. And guess what? You have to take care of yourself first. And you've heard the flight attendant when you're putting on your seatbelt, put on your mask first before you help any kids or anyone around you. Because if you don't take care of yourself first, you can't help and serve other people. And that's really where it starts. So we work with each individual person to kind of look and reflect and find out things that they can do more of and less of. Make sure they can get rid of. Sometimes they're too perfectionist and that holds them back. So we look for things of there that you can do. And I'm going to share some stories on each one of these really quick of how it happened to me. And then positive accountability. This is where the magic happens. Most people, most leaders go around catching people doing things wrong. Well, when you're doing that, you're catching negative. Well, when you catch negative, it multiplies, you get more negative. But if you can shift and start magnifying the positives, you're going to get more positive. You have to be, as entrepreneurs, you have to be flexible in the details. Understand not everybody likes a chocolate cake. And what I mean by that, If I was going to say, hey, we're going to make this chocolate cake, and I give you the recipe, all of you will probably be slightly different. Some of you may be milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate. Some of you can say, I don't like chocolate. I'm going to go vanilla. At the end of the day, you just make a cake. You got to be flexible with that. And that's how it's more important how you make the cake versus me telling you exactly which cake to make. So positive. And then the last P is performance. No question. This is when my leaders get the book. I actually have the book here. They'll actually grab the book and they'll look at the table of contents. They'll see the 3 Ps and they go, performance, that's what I need. And they'll go towards that section of the book. Well, guess what? It's going to be short term. Performance is so important, but we get in there talking about more how to build your dream team, getting into visible scoreboards, talking about how to communicate. Communication isn't what you say. Communication is how you make others people feel. And the most best communication that a leader can do is right here. Listen. They can actually truly listen. And a leader should say and talk less and listen twice as much. And that is so important when you're doing that. And that's actually how you win hearts as well. I was working with a sewer company, in LA, believe it or not. And she goes, the CEO is like, Hernani, I'm so glad you're here. My team loves accountability now. I've been trying to talk to them for years about it. They wouldn't do any, they just, every time I came in, they were like, here we go, accountability, we're in trouble. And you got them to love it. I worked with them for a few months and she goes, Hernani, do you know you have a 4th P? And I go, 4th P. There's no 4th P. I wrote the book. It's not in there. So I always talk about proof. You got to show the proof. And she goes, no, it's not proof. She goes, once you do these 3 Ps, you automatically get peer-to-peer accountability. And that's what happens. And that's what you started hearing there from Advanced Helicopter Services. The other thing that drastically came out of that when I debriefed with them was communication. Their communication had skyrocketed. So within the 3 months that we had started working together, above their trend, we had a trend line, they were up 35% just from that trend line, from efficiencies, from everything that they had done. And that was just a huge boost. So I had actually no idea that accountability would really help communication as much. But this is where now I want you to do a quick little assessment on your company. And I know some of you may not quite be there with employees yet, or you're working for a company, but there was, I think we popped it in there. It's an actual, I gave you a little snapshot. Let's see if I got mine here, which I think I do.
The PDF worksheet.
Yep, PDF.
Yep, I just threw it into the chat.
Perfect. And it's going to look like this. It's got the setup. If we were doing a workshop, it'd be here. So I just gave you a couple little things. We're going to have you do this quick little assessment for yourself or for your company or for the organization that you currently work for. The only difference between what you see up there and what you may have on that PDF is it's 1 is going to be high priority fix, 2, 3, 4, and then 5 is perfect. We have no issues. So you would put your score here. And for example, completing tasks on time, boom, I think we're a 3. Go with your first instinct. Many times your first instinct is going to be what it is. So completing tasks on time, providing solutions and not excuses, high level of trust with the executive team, high level of trust with other employees, taking ownership, looking for productive ways to save expenses, looking for ways to improve service, departments collaborating with each other, asking for and providing feedback, actively listening and obtaining perspectives from others. That's a key one. Learning from successes and failures, speaking up and taking ownership, doing more than what is expected, informative and productive, regularly looking for ways to celebrate success, employees demonstrate the company values, leaders manage conflict constructively, effective onboarding program for new hires, authentic praises by the leaders throughout the organization, and authentic praises by the executive team. So when you're going through, that's actually how fast it works. You just really go, this is what I think we are. And normally your gut instinct is going to be right. you would add that all up, you divide it by 20, and this kind of gives you an idea of where you're at here. So we're not going to get into too detail, but I wanted you to have it. And when I start working with organizations, I'll have the executive team go through this. They will rate it. And sometimes the executive team might just be the owner. So I'll have them do it. I'm like, okay, great. So this is what we have, your top 3, your bottom 3 things you have to focus on. Now let's take it to the street. Let's ask your actual people. Let's ask your team. And every time I've done this with small teams of even like 3 people up to 20,000, normally there's a pretty big discrepancy between, guess what, from the executive team compared to what the team thinks. And when we start working together, it's going to be what the team is actually, because it's based on how you're making them feel. So they're feeling some of these things. So those are the top 3 things we'll go after. But these are your high performance traits. You want to know if you're executing high performance? This is it from here, from your team running on all cylinders. And this is something you actually want to do every 6 months. Takes about 3 minutes. So hopefully you have that information. You can do that with your team. If you currently have a team, I would first do it yourself and then share it with your team. Okay, I'll pause here and just allow for some questions or anything here if the group wants to add. I like to keep it interactive.
Yeah, if you want to raise your Zoom hand, or feel free to unmute yourself, or if you want to just throw in the chat, I can bring your question on in to Fernando. And I did throw the PDF into the chat. So if you had trouble downloading it or anything like that, please let me know.
Yeah. I just recently worked with an unbelievable company. Most of you are big fans of. I'm one of their biggest fans on the planet. You've probably heard of Mikuni. Sushi restaurants. We went through this. They're Japanese, so I'm working with their executive team. They actually scored themselves pretty low on this. And then actually when we met with their team, it was much higher, but they were kind of more critical. And that's sometimes what I found is sometimes the executive teams can be more critical on themselves than what the team actually really feels. So, but they, something that they're really looking at, they've really, as you've known, expanded really quick. They had a lot of challenges with a lot of stuff that's happened with COVID and things that they've had to pivot. But they've really got such an amazing high-performing team.
It looks like we have a question. Angie, I saw you raise your hand. Did you have a question?
Yes, I don't have a question, but I just wanted to say that I love the accountability scale. So with that idea of balanced accountability, I think that you have to be balanced. You can't be too extreme, or you're just going to drive everybody away, even if your customers are happy.
So true. And you guys have heard, you're right on, Angie. You've heard of hard skills, where it's kind of the stuff that you actually do. And then you got the soft skills. That's more the people side. Accountability is the foundational skill for all of those things. So if you don't have that, you really don't have the backbone to really achieve some of the other key things that you're looking for. That was great. Love that.
You got a raised hand from Mark. Go ahead, Mark.
Perfect.
Yes. If you have, let's say, for example, you create a really tight team within your group, but you work in a big organization, which has a lot of projects siloed, you have dependencies. How do you influence those other teams that don't have accountability?
Yeah, that's perfect. Can you tell me a little bit more? Do you have an example?
For
Not to get into
example,
details, but
financial, if a lot of times transformation projects, you have groups that on, but you can't influence them as for how they're going to work because they're siloed off and they serve a special purpose, and you need this or their whatever they're going to produce. And your team may be, you have your team working well and performing well, but then you have multiple teams that the way they work is totally siloed off, and you just have to wait till they're done for the good of the project.
Yeah, that's a great example. So thank you for bringing that up. That actually happens in a lot of organizations where they kind of start protecting themselves and they don't work together. So one, you got to understand that we're a team together, but many times the organization they don't have a good purpose of why they exist. And the other thing that they don't sometimes have is I call it a wig. a wildly important goal. What's the wildly important goal that we as an organization is focused on right now? And since we're talking about use the company Advanced Helicopter Services, they had so many things that they were chasing. Every department had their own little WIG goal, but you've got to have one for the company. And so the company we came up with, they wanted to 90% of the time when they tell their external client, your helicopter will be ready by this date, 90% of the time, they will deliver it by that date. They were down to 70%. So once that became a focus, then every single department had to, how are you going to contribute? How are you going to help and support that? So, because now we're together and there was a visible scoreboard, how your department is helping and achieve that. Now they know what they're going after. And when I say every department, legal, how do you support that? Accounting, how do you support that? So everybody started working on that. So when someone came in, this is what we're trying to do. We're trying to get this client out of here by this date. Oh, it was like all hands on deck. Let's get it done. And so that's when you start seeing the magic. But you got to look as a company, do they really know? And you heard Brian talk about it, the why. Why do we exist? Many times they overlook that. He brought that up as a great point. This is why we exist. This is what we got to do. And let's go get it. And that's where you start really bringing the team together for that. Hopefully that answered your question, but perfect. Do we have another question?
Yep. Jeff has the next question.
Yeah, I really like what I'm hearing here. This is fascinating. I'm just wondering, in your list of attributes of a high performance culture, I didn't notice anything on learning in there, and yet that's probably the ultimate competitive advantage. So where does learning fit?
Yeah, no, it's a great catch there. So asking for and providing feedback would be one I'd kind of throw in there, and actively listening and pertaining. So we could probably modify some of those to do that. This comes from working together and then having groups come up with what are the things that really drive it. So
given their situation,
informative and productive meetings, there's a lot of things you could throw, but I agree with you. You were right on, Jeff. That's learning is so important. What sometimes gets in the, actually, this is not sometimes. This is what gets in the way of entrepreneurs and leaders and people. Ego. Once ego gets in the way, you stop learning because you think you know everything. So that's why I think it's such a great call out that you mentioned that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalie, you have the next question.
Yeah, really quick question. I was wondering what some of your stories are with using these principles with more stubborn executives. I'm very curious.
Excellent. So let's save that because I'm going to talk about energy vampires towards the end. And that's what most people want to hear. Like energy vampires, the one that sucks the energy out. The one's like, why am I working for this leader? Or vice versa. You might be an energy vampire. How do you address that? So that's great. I love the questions that are coming. Hang on to those. You can pop them in the chat. Cameron's doing a good job catching those. But I'm going to kind of go through and I'm going to share some stories that might help you understand where I'm coming from on mine. So one is, as you can see, I talk about accountability and I'm passionate about it. Probably there's not too many people in your life that you've probably met that is so passionate as I am when it comes to this. And I love it because it helps me so much. But where I learned this was cow number one taught me about accountability. When I was 9 years old, we lived in Idaho and we worked on a dairy. And anytime you live on a farm or anywhere and you're young, as long as you can walk, you have chores to do. My chore was to get off the school bus and go into the barn and relieve my dad and milk the final cows while he went and fed the cows, and then we'd go have dinner together. Well, this one cold November day, I go in there. There's only a few cows left, but there was just one cow that wouldn't come in, and it was cow number one. And she was a special cow because she was the very first cow born on our dairy, and then she had grown up and calved herself. So this is the first time for her in the barn. And when she got in there, she was spooked out. So I finally get her in. Keep in mind, I'm 75 pounds. She's probably north of 1,500 pounds, big animal. I finally get her into the milking stall. I clean her udder and I tried to put the machine on and she just kicks. And I'm like, oh. So I tried to kind of put my shoulder in it, which is not smart. Shouldn't do that. Put my shoulder in it. She kicks again, scratches me with her hoof. And I'm like, I'm not milking her. I opened up the gate and let her go. I had about 10 minutes of cleaning to do. And then all of a sudden, right when I was done, I hear the gate behind me kind of open up and it's like a chain, like it rattles. And all of a sudden, cow number 1 comes in all flustered. I'm like, how did she open the gate? Like, I'm trying to process it all. And then I heard the footsteps, like the boom, boom, walking through manure footsteps. And they were my dad, the fee, fi, fo, fum. I knew I was in for it at that time. He caught me. So he brings the cow in, and I'm like, okay, he's going to milk her. No, I got the biggest spanking of all time. And when I say spanking, it was like a bloody nose. I peed my pants, spanking. And keep in mind, I don't want you to judge my dad. This is a few years ago. This is before they invented timeout. Back then, they would kind of spank you to get you a line. And I hated my dad for years for doing that. So so at this point, okay, I got spanked. I'm bleeding. I'm crying. I don't need to milk cow number 1. So I took a couple steps towards the house, and he like picks me up, turns me around, and goes, "You go finish what you started and do it right this time. Go finish what you started and do it right this time." Whew, I still get goosebumps. Well, my dad, he had taught me how to milk a cow that's never been in there before. You put this mechanism over their hips, you tighten it up, they can't kick you, you milk her, and done. And I cut corners. So he let me have it, but he also made me go fix my mistakes. I never cut corners again. And that's when I started growing up in my career. I started realizing, okay, there's going to be days I just want to cut corners. I want to find an easy way. Nope. Cow number 1 kept me in line. But she started thinking, well, your dad was tough on you. My family was tough on me. They didn't let me get away with certain things. But why did he do that? Because he was my parent. And as a parent, our job is to help our kids become greater than themselves. Well, that's what a leader does. A leader does the exact same thing. And the reason he was holding me accountable is because he loved me. At the end of the day, that's why he was pushing me into that direction. And if you think what a leader does and what a true strong leader, that's what they do, is they help you become greater than yourself. Because that's what we sometimes have, these doubts and things that we don't think we can do, but a leader really motivates you and pushes you to do that. And my parents did that. I had coaches that did that, siblings that held me to a higher standard. And I'm looking at you, all of you here today. I mean, you're going to become an entrepreneur. There's a very big drive of something you really want to do, and it'll shake up and change the world because you're special. And how did that happen? There must have been someone in your life that held you to a higher standard. Somebody at the time, you probably didn't like it so much. It might have been a coach, a mentor, a teacher, a parent, a sibling, anyone. Why did they do that? Because they truly loved you. And that's why they did that. So accountability and love in the workplace is totally fine. You know, I know, even here in California, I know they're like, Hernani, we're not going to bring love. I mean, that's already, we're going to lose people. No, an immature leader is going to say, love is romantic, it's sexual. I'm going to get busted. I'm going to HR. I'm going to lose my job. Yes, that's a true story. That would happen if you go that route. The love that I'm talking about is the love of humanity, the love of serving other people, the love of helping people. And that's what you are here as entrepreneurs. That's what you're looking for. You're looking to find out what that problem is. You went through it with Brian, expert, knows that. And now you're trying to look for the solution of how I can do and I can serve that. And if you think you're going to like it, don't do it, because you're not going to be very good at it. But if you truly love it, it's that higher purpose, you're going to be successful. I stayed at Sleep Train, not because we were selling rectangles. I would have left a long time ago. I mean, selling mattresses is not what I enjoyed. What I loved was the solution that we were doing, the solution that we were serving people. We weren't selling mattresses. We were helping people, customers, fall in love with sleep again. That's what we did. And that's what our team understood, is we were helping people fall in love with sleep again, because we know how important sleep is. How important? It's more important than food and water. You're like, okay, you're kind of crazy, Hernani. And probably thinking I'm crazy, right? Food and water, no way, sleep's more important. No, here's the science. Food, you can go about 14 days without. Water, if all the conditions are right. You can go about 7 days if all the conditions are right. Sleep, most people can't make it past 3 days without sleep. And I'm sure here, if I was asking anyone, most of you have probably not gone 3 complete days without sleep. You can't even find food and water until you sleep well. So what we were doing is we were saving people's lives. We were helping them fall in love with sleep again, because they were having a problem when they walked into the store, and we would help them find that. And we would ask them, we want to find the mattress you truly love, not the one that you like. So when you're going through this problem solution, check yourself. Am I creating something that the end consumer is truly going to love? Am I creating something that the people that I work with, are they truly going to love selling this and having the passion to do that with? And we wouldn't bring products in if we didn't have the passion for it. So accountability equals love. And hopefully you found something there inside yourself of who that person is. And I want you to use the chat right here. Use the chat and give that person respect and honor. Hopefully they're still on this planet. If they're not on this planet, they will hear and feel that love. So who was it? Who held you to a higher standard? Who do you want to give credit for doing that? Mine was my parent, my mom, my sister. She was my older. She's 14 years older than me. She held me accountable. She's like my second mom. I had a coach in soccer. I hated to do stuff with, but we won state championships because he truly loved her. So I see it here. We've got Ty Franklin. Yeah, that's awesome. My dad, mom, my maker, my dad. That's awesome. Thanks, Mom. My scoutmaster. And if you haven't done this, take a moment and call them. When we do workshops together and we have the time, I would physically say, okay, you're going to take 5 minutes. You're going to make a phone call. And if they don't answer, you're going to leave a voicemail. And if they don't, we're going to send them a text. And then I'd give them another 5 minutes because normally people would call them right back. We want to give them that love because we haven't done that. And I was lucky to do that with my parents and tell them thank you so much because I know I was a jerk. I was a pest. I didn't appreciate it at the time, but now I'm so glad they did it. They gave me some tough love. The incredible thing about love is that you can't get rid of it. If you try to give it up, give it away, you end up with twice as much. But if you try to hold on to it, it disappears. Warren Buffett, pretty rich guy. He's made a lot of money investing in the companies. So of course, he's a super smart guy. So what does he do? He looks at the financials, looks at that stuff. Yeah, that gets people into the game. They're doing a good job. But before he invests into a company, he meets with their executive team. He meets with them, sees if they've got a good tight bond. And then he actually wants to go out and meet the people. But he's looking to see how those people interact with the executive team, the owner, and seeing if it's real. Because he knows every single company, not every single, is that most companies will survive when they have love involved. They can overcome these challenges. Using sleep training as an example, we went through that 2008. Lehman Brothers collapsed. We didn't have sales. We took pay cuts as the executive team. We were living paycheck to paycheck. And what I mean by that is we were just enough money in the bank account to pay our employees. We had to wait some of our vendors. We had to get some loans. We came out of that because our team truly loved us, saved some expenses, and we came out so on fire when we came out of it that we got acquired and we were sold for the highest multiple ever in the furniture industry. That's what happens, and that's what creates when a team really comes together. So, and I was going to share with you my nickname. I wasn't always that way. When I started in Stockton, California as a store manager, got it by default because no one applied for it. I went in there, rattled some cages. I increased profit by tripled the store's business. And then all of a sudden I had my manager in there telling me, hey, your team doesn't want to work with you. I'm like, what? They don't want to work with you. He goes, yep. They don't like the way you're handling. I'm like, there's no way. They're making more money. The store's on fire. We're doing great. He goes, do you know what your nickname is? I go, nickname? He goes, yeah, your nickname's Her Nazi. Her Nazi. That was my nickname. Let's keep in mind, I was 23. So that was my first level of management. That's like the worst thing you could ever call someone. My team was calling me Her Nazi because I micromanaged everything. I was that seagull manager. I'd fly around, see something wrong. I would jump in there, get everybody all flustered up, and then I would poop on the way out. That's what seagulls do. I was a seagull manager. But once I understood positive accountability, catching people doing things right, giving them, being flexible on the details, letting them own what they were doing, that's where the success started coming. And one key thing that we ended up doing is we did this after I told I was Her Nazi. I actually wanted to quit, didn't want to work for the company. After I got over my pity party, I met with my team and said, okay, what can I do more of as your leader and what can I do less of? And I listened, I showed them the proof. And a year later, they ended up giving me the best award that I've ever gotten, best leadership award for them. So I was an energy vampire. They didn't want to work with me. So that was a key thing. So I wanted to share a quick little report card here. What I've seen with organizations, when I start looking at performance reviews and different things that they have, they'll have this very detailed performance review, and it'll have all these numbers on it. So it's going to be page 4. I'll bring mine up here. The personal report card. The first one, just kind of what I just went through here, is something that you could do on yourself, just so you understand accountability equals love. Who's had a significant influence in your life? Looking back at your career and just things here. Do you love serving other people? But the personal report card is an actual, most reviews in most organizations, they either have a very detailed program that's very detailed, that sucks up a lot of bandwidth and it's all over the place. Or number 2, they don't do them. They may have something, but they haven't done it. So this is more of a personal report card that you do. You only have to do one, which is your own, and then you meet with your team, with your employee. So if you have anybody you work with, this is a great way to kind of start learning if there's some things that you can do more or less of. So they're going to list all the goals from the previous review period. What accomplishments are you most proud of from this? Like, it would be something for your purpose for the company. List any difficulties you have in carrying out your workload. What parts of your job do you feel you do best, and what parts of your job you have difficulty with? But this is the key one right here, is as your leader, what can I do more of? What can I do less of? And that's where you get some valuable information. Then you'll list 2 work-related goals, and then the key is the one personal, one that's kind of their own. And this is where you start winning hearts. It could be that they're saving up for a house. It could be that they want to lose 10 pounds. It could be that they want to do some leadership development. Like I heard with, Jeff was talking about someone that wants to do additional training. That's the best gift you can do for them, is if there's something that they're struggling with, they need some help, push them into that. Give them a little tough love. So if somebody wants to be a better listener, help them with that. Give them a little tough love, have them read a book or go to a conference that's focused on listening, and they'll come out of there so much better. So I don't know if there's a psychology thing that's called Imago. It's where you really focus on listening and you repeat what the person tells you. That was one of my biggest learnings when I started doing that. Is so in the heat of the moment, if there's a crisis going on, if there's a customer upset, I do a really good job of listening. Okay, let me validate what you just said. And then we always have that really connection. And they always tell me, I'm so glad I'm talking to you because you're a good listener. I can tell you I wasn't. I was not a very good listener at all. And I had to kind of force myself to truly pay attention and listen. And then, of course, the leadership. This is the part they always want to do. They get to provide some feedback. It's something you do quarterly or every 6 months, and you're done. You only have to write one, which is your own. And then you meet with your team if you're a leader of others. So, but it's a great time. As you can see, it's very collaborative there. So I'll take a moment here and pause, see if there's any additional thoughts. And then the next one we're going to get into is energy vampires.
Pause here. And Angie, looks like, yeah, you raised your hand. Go ahead.
So in terms of the report card and the ability to have meetings with your team, I work with a grassroots kind of advocacy group, and so we're not really employees. Do you have any strategies for doing a meeting like this with a team like that, like that's not an actual company?
Yeah. Do you have a leader in the organization?
No, we're kind of co-founders and co-organizers, and there's 4 of us.
Okay, there's 4 of you. Then you have meetings that you come together and do some things. And I saw you sent me a personal note. I read it, that you're getting the book and you're going to listen to it. So thank you so much for doing that. So you should get some really good nuggets in there. But I would bring it up to them that I learned something new, and that you wanted to bounce it off of them and see if this is something that they want to try. Instead of, I've had where they're like, this is what we're doing, we're going to roll it out. And of course, they don't get very good feedback. But if you roll it out to them as, hey, we got this, I think this is good for us to get some feedback from each other. So it really gets us pointed in the right direction. How do you guys feel about it? It's real simple. It's got a few questions in here. You can modify it, by the way, tweak it, keep it one page, and then we'll just share it. And this could be a meeting itself. Everybody can share their own, or you can, since you don't have, and I think that would probably be the best in your case, is take a meeting, give everybody 15 minutes, and they kind of have a chance to share. So
great, thanks.
Hopefully that answered it for you, Angie.
Yes, thank you.
Good question.
My pleasure.
Any final questions? We have about 12 minutes, Hernani, so just making sure you are.
All right, perfect.
I know you're on your time, so but I will let you take it away.
Well, let's get into energy vampires. This is a good topic. This is where people can really bleed organizations. They can suck up your energy, or you might be that energy vampire. This is where you need some tough love. How do you handle it? You can do, there's a way that I go over with it that has over an 80% success rate with it. Keep in mind, I was that energy vampire. So the first thing you have to do is what you permit, you promote. So you have to stop it. The more you allow this, the more they're going to be an energy vampire. And worse yet, the more they're going to get more energy vampires. More people start getting into it. And when that happens, you get a very toxic environment. So address it with the individual. And the way you do that, it would be private and say, is it okay if I give some tough love? I'm going to use Cameron here as my kind of like the role play. I would look at Cameron and I go, Cameron, can I give you some tough love? What do you think Cameron would say?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it. Let's bring it. Okay, let me share some stuff with you. That's normally what you get. They're like, as soon as you use the tough love, that gets that, okay, I know it's going to be negative, but I know it's coming from a heart. It's going to be something that's constructive. So, all right. So Cameron, I want to let you know that what you've been doing has been affecting the team. It has been sucking the energy out of the team. So keep in mind what I did there. I did something that's team related, which it should be. It shouldn't be me personally. It should be more if it's something with the whole team. And then let me share with you what those are. And it's 3 facts. Fact number 1, this is what you did. No opinions. You did this. This is what happened. Fact 2, this is what you did. And then fact 3. And then you pause. And this is where the silence happens. And you have to be patient. And you pause. And you just look them in the eye. Many times you're like, whoa, okay, what's going on here? Just kind of like I was when I got heard Nazi, like, no way. Most of the time, people are like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. They take the hit. They own it, which is great. Not always. Sometimes they will flip out. They will go like, what are you talking about? There's no way. That was all taken out of context. I'm like, well, let me share one more with you. And the 4th one, this is the one that's like a little bit more direct and keep it there with a very direct, keep your opinion out of it. Let me share one more example. This is what it is. Boom. And then you pause again. Many times at that point, they really take it like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. Oh, I didn't mean it that way. They get they start backtracking. Or, which is a very rare case, they will flip out again. No way, that's BS, blah, blah, blah. At that point, it's very difficult to continue working with someone like that because they don't have the personal accountability. But I can tell you most of the time when you do those 4 steps, it works. Recent company I was working with, number 2 in charge. We had this difficult conversation. CEO didn't feel comfortable doing it, wanted me to do it. I wanted him to run it, but he just didn't feel comfortable. We ran it. By the time I got to the 2nd fact, he was like, oh my gosh, I had no idea I was doing that. I didn't even get to number 3 or number 4. He took the hit. We came up with an action plan, a SMART form, whatever action plan you have. I've heard of PIP forms. PIP forms are performance improvement plans. SMART forms are smart, measurable, attainable. It's all in the book. I'm not getting too granular for you, but then you put something in writing, and when it's written, it's real. So that's dealing with an energy vampire. So it does work, high success rate with it, but there are some people that it is time to part ways, because if you don't, I've let go some $1 million writers in the company, some of our top performers. And when we did that, I was a little worried. Sales were going to trend, but the energy went right back to the people. And then the people ended up doing more business than that $1 million writer. So hopefully I gave you a couple little things there. I wanted to end with you on these top 10 leadership qualities. These are if we were doing a workshop, we would be looking at all the different ones, and I'd have you rank them and put them up. This is from a collective group of probably north of 100 workshops that I've done with a lot of people. These are what comes up as the top 10. Remember David Letterman, late night show, top 10? This is it for personal accountability. So number 10, returns communication. That's a big deal. That's starting to become a bigger deal now. I actually didn't know how bad it was, but most organizations, they're like, yeah, no one returns my emails. No one returns texts. They just ignore me. Oh my gosh, that's like, how do you feel when you get ignored? So that's a big one. The other one is does what they say they're going to do. It's a big one. Accept blame for their action. They take the hit. If you want your team to take a hit, they got to see you take the hit first for it. So that's where you become very vulnerable. You're proactive in preventing problems, that you're not like, let that department deal with it, or they can deal with it, that you're actually trying to work together and you're trying to put out the fire instead of adding fuel to the fire. Provide solutions and no excuses. I mean, how many of you love a good excuse? Anybody there? No, nobody loves a good excuse, right? However, many times we hear it and many times it comes out of our mouths. So we've got to look at that and go, is that an excuse or is that a solution? Let's focus on solutions. And that's when the peer-to-peer accountability starts working, where your team holds you accountable. Shows humility and apologizes. That is such a big one. They want leaders to do that. That is so important this time and age. And if you don't have humility and you don't apologize, you've got too big of an ego and you're a jerk. So that's where you got to check yourself, because jerks will get you in trouble. You will not be as successful. You will not surround yourself with a tribe of people that want to follow you. That you display honesty and transparency. It's okay to tell them, I don't know the answer. I grew up, my time and age was like, the leader is supposed to know. Sometimes I'd make up stuff. No, just say, I don't know what that is. Let me look into it and find out. Take the hit. We're not expected to know everything. We're not perfect. Shows proof that you're listening. That's a big one. We kind of talked about that. Always looking for ways to improve. And this is the number one, and this has been unanimously, comes out. And it could be because I talk about love, but it shows love in serving others. Are you truly doing that? That is a quick little check mark for you. If you're going through there, like, what are things I can work on? Work on those top 10, and you'll start seeing more people that want to follow you. You're going to surround yourself with great people. Dale Carlson has an amazing quote. He talks about surround yourself with great people, treat them well, and make everyone successful. And guess what you're going to have? A high-performing organization. So that is so true. But I'd like you to hear through the chat. You guys use the chat really well. Tell me one word. How do you feel about accountability? What's the one word that comes to your mind about balanced accountability? Love to see that here. Necessary, awesome. Needed. It's critical, awesome. Necessary, love it. Brilliant. It's great. Thank you so much for that. And you might have heard this quote before: the best way to predict the future is to go out and create it. It all starts with you. That's what you're doing here with entrepreneurship. But what sometimes happens is we get caught up into the weeds and we keep dreaming. We need to start doing. That is so important. Stop dreaming. You've got an idea. Start doing. What's the things that you can do to start taking action? And it's going to be small baby steps. What you're doing right here and going through this with the Carlson Center, you're going to have a huge head start coming out of it. Most entrepreneurs aren't doing this. I wish when I was an entrepreneur that this was here. And I've already forwarded a bunch of people that in the future, you need to go take this and go through it, because you're learning from the best people here. So they're great examples. But I wanted to share this with you. Richard Branson. I was labeled the dumbest person in school. I suffer from dyslexia. And you probably saw what he just did. He just took a group of people up to outer space. He just did that. Does he know how to fly a plane? Nope. Does he know how to get to outer space? Nope. He knows how to surround himself with great people and treat them well. And so many people that have worked with him will say that, Richard, I love working with him. They use that L word. Love is such a powerful word. Do you know that he has a company, you heard of Virgin Brands, of north of 70,000 employees. He's also one of the only entrepreneurs that I know that has 12 other businesses doing north of $1 billion, $1 billion in sales. So he knows how to inspire and deliver teams. He doesn't work at all those, but he surrounded himself with great teams. He was flexible in the details and allowed them to do what they do best. So you're the heartbeat of your company. You are, there isn't no one else that's running. So take care of yourself. There's going to be times where you're feeling burnout. And once you start feeling, it's like when you're dehydrated, it's a little too late. You need to really take some time, go recharge those batteries, because you're like a fan. As soon as you pull the power out of a fan that's working, you're going to keep working, but you're going to get slower and slower and slower. And then eventually you just shut down. Realize that you need more power, more fuel. Take care of yourself. You are the most important person for your company, and it's so important that you stay energized. So the books are available if you'd like them. Champion Advantage just came out. Cameron Law was a big part of that. Thank you, Cameron, so much. And he's actually on the back part of this. It says the Champion Advantage is a must read for any leaders looking to be more impactful in all the realms of their life. This one is more personal. This one gets into you, how you could win at home and work. It gets into how you win. And that's an acronym for what's important now. So thank you so much, Cameron, for being a part of that. I just launched in June, but I am always here to serve you. This is my cell number. You can text me if you'd like, reach out to me. Let's stay in touch with LinkedIn, but I am here. I've got a few minutes. I'll stay later because I know some of you want to leave, but I'll definitely stay later, answer any questions and give you any love you need.
Perfect. So maybe what I'll do is I'll share some upcoming events, and those that want to hang on and ask a few questions, I can hang on with you, Hernani, and we can do that. So first off, thank you for coming and being a guest speaker and sharing your passion for accountability equaling love and talking about the power of culture and leadership. It certainly is a key component to building a business, and Dale, our founder at the Carlson Center, as well as Sleep Train, speaks so highly of how to build teams and how that ultimately drives success for those around you. So one of the things I wanted to certainly point out was, when you're looking at the energy vampires, there's a real strict tie to your company culture and the values that you have. And so are they accountable not only to the tasks that they're doing, but accountable to the culture and values that you're building within your organization as well. And so really excited. We will be sharing all these resources in a PDF format, as well as a recording. As for upcoming events in the local entrepreneurial ecosystem that I want to share, we do have an application for our Lean Innovator cohort, which will start at the end of August. So feel free to check that out. In August, we also have a Startup Sack Happy Hour where we will be talking about investment. And so you can learn about how to raise seed stage capital. I threw in the toolkit series. If you haven't registered for all of the sessions, please do so. So you can get the Zoom links for those sessions. And then lastly, every Wednesday, you can join us for 1 Million Cups, where two entrepreneurs present and get for 6 minutes, and then they get 20 minutes of Q&A. So without further ado, I'll call it to a close. And if you have further questions for Hernani, we will stay on and answer those. But if you need to hop off, totally understand and appreciate your time. Look forward to seeing you next week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. And if you have a question or want to stay on, feel free to raise that hand or unmute yourself to ask Hernani, or Brian, is if he's staying on as well. I know he could certainly hop off if he has to go.
A lot of great feedback in the chat, but yeah, if anyone's got any questions, it's awesome.
And if not, no worries. All right, we're getting some thank yous. All right, going once, going twice. Well, I think I will call it a close then. And thank you again, Hernani. We really appreciate your time, energy, and passion. And we just deeply value your support here at the Carlson Center and in the ecosystem. So thank you for being here.
Awesome. Thank you, Dick. I love that heart. That's awesome. I love you guys. Always here for you. So anything you need.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank you all. Have a good one.
Have a good one.